I'll start the Zoom recording. That's starting now. And give me 1 second to put up the display here. All right, we're live.
Of course. Hang on 1 sec. I've never had that issue. I had sun I got sun reflecting off a picture on the other side of my office. Never had that.
Jeff.
I've never had a Zoom meeting this late on a sunny day. So anyway, welcome and call to order the Zoning Board of Appeals, Town of East Greenbush meeting of June 9th, 2020. I will start with an introduction of our board members, and I'll help us out because I'll go around the horn so you guys don't talk over each other. Scott Stravell.
Scott Stravell.
Tom Hickey. Present's good. Matt Ostagai.
Yep, good evening. Present.
Bob Seward.
Good evening.
And John Conway. And we are short one Zoning Board of Appeals member. So,
hello. Good evening, everyone.
Yep. We have 6 members tonight. A majority vote is still 4 of 6 members. We also have our Zoning Board of Appeals attorney, Bill Hesney, with us tonight. Our secretary, Allison Lovely. Our court stenographer, Donna Moran. And our town planning and zoning director, Adam Yagelski. So to review why we're here tonight, an applicant for a variance is being afforded a public hearing to appeal the decision of the code enforcement officer. The legal criteria used by the board in determining the disposition of the appeal is defined by state law, is documented in the comprehensive zoning law, and was provided to the applicant at the time of their application. Based on this guidance, the applicant is expected to present his or her case to the Zoning Board of Appeals, and then the public will be afforded an opportunity to comment on the application. We request all comments and questions be addressed to the board and not directly to the applicant. The board will then review the materials submitted as well as the testimony presented at this hearing by both the applicant and the public, and will either determine the disposition of the appeal by majority vote tonight or table the public hearing to a future date. As per town code, any member of the public wishing to speak today shall not be required to disclose his or her name, address, or any other contact-related information. With that, we will open public hearing 2020-04, appeal number 2020-04, the appeal of Dave Sherman of 2609 U.S. Route 20, Nassau, New York, 12123. The applicant proposes to construct a single-family dwelling on an undersized lot in the R2 zoning district with a proposed frontage of 60 feet. The review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of the town zoning law, Section 2.5.1A, supplementary bulk standards, and 2.6.6 residence district R2. The required lot width in the R2 zoning district is 75 feet. Therefore, the proposed action requires an area variance for the property located at 46 New York Ave, East Greenbush, New York, tax map number 155.9-6-7. Pursuant to Executive Order number 202.1 issued by Governor Cuomo on March 12, 2020, and advisories issued by federal, state, and local officials related to the COVID-19 virus, the zoning board will convene the public hearing remotely as follows. The public hearing will commence at 7:30 and shall be conducted through the use of Zoom, a web-based video conferencing tool with local desktop client and smartphone applications that will allow board members and the public to participate electronically and remotely by audio and with or without a video connection. The meeting will also be live streamed on the town's YouTube channel. There's several options to access the public hearing, including Zoom, as well as the YouTube live stream. And with that, I'll just review. We have all the zoning board members were delivered electronically. The application package by David Sherman, which included a signed summary of the 5 criteria used to evaluate an area variance, We have part 1 of the short environmental assessment form, the denial by the building inspector, along with the supporting documents by the applicants. Before we open up the public hearing, we also have a planning board recommendation dated June 4th, 2020. The following recommendation from the May 27, 2020 planning board minutes. The planning board votes to adopt Mr. Viola's report as its own advisory opinion, recommending approval of the area variance, and shall submit the report to the planning boards in compliance with section 4.3 of the town's comprehensive zoning law. The supplemental report by Mr. Viola dated May 27, 2020 was attached, and that motion was carried by a 7-0 votes. Again, that was in recommendation of approval for the variance. We also have notification of zoning review action from Rensselaer County. After having carefully reviewed the information submitted as part of the subject referral, the Bureau of Economic Development and Planning has determined that the proposal does not have a major impact on county plans, and that local consideration shall prevail. So with that, I would like to open up the meeting to Mr. Sherman, just to review what the request is on the appeal for this undersized lot. And if you could try to address the 5 criteria that the zoning board will use to evaluate the appeal tonight, that'd be appreciated. Thank you.
All right, so I guess I'm going to start with question number 1. Whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood, which I don't see how it could. I'm pretty sure I submitted a plan of 28 by 50, which is roughly 1,400 square feet, is basically a small house, or what you would consider a starter house, which is pretty similar to what you have in that neighborhood. So do I just keep going to question number 2?
Yeah, you can keep going. That'd be fine. Thank you.
Whether the benefits sought by the application can be achieved by some other method. No, what I'm missing here is the 75 feet of the frontage. I do have a lot that is bigger than 7,500 square feet that's required, which is a 75 by 100 lot. I mean, my lot is deeper than 100 feet. I just don't have the 60 feet. Question number 3, whether the request area variance is sustainable. Now, I don't even really know what that question means. If somebody could help me out with that one.
It's substantial.
Oh, substantial. So what is it? What exactly is that trying to say to me? I mean,
the requirement is 75 feet of frontage. Is your variance request to drop down to 60 foot with an appeal? Is that a substantial request or not? A reduction of 15 feet, in your opinion?
I don't think it is, because I'm pretty sure every lot in that neighborhood is 60 feet wide. And I built a house directly across the street in 2012 that was 60 feet wide, which I didn't have to get a variance at the time. So I guess we're going to move on to question 4, whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on physical environment conditions. No. I know this is a wetter area, so I plan on building this house on a slab, a 1-story ranch house on a slab with a total of roughly 1,400 square feet. So any drainage will be drained off to the storm drain in the front of the house, and the gutters will be connected to that drain as well. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created. No, the lot's always been 60 feet wide, and I really didn't have nothing to do with that when they subdivided it. So I think I answered all the questions.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it, Mr. Sherman.
Yep.
Any questions from members of the board?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
While we were talking about the self-creation issue, how long have you owned the property?
I've roughly owned it 3 years. Now, there was a house on this lot when I purchased it from the Georges, who live across the street, but the house was in such poor condition, it pretty much had to be torn down.
So, and how long ago was that the house was removed?
I'm pretty sure it was roughly 2 years ago.
Okay. There's still a garage on the property that you're going to keep, is that right?
Yes, sir. The garage is in need of some repair, but it is a 2-car garage, which would get a new roof, a new concrete floor, and new garage doors and siding on it.
Okay, but you will be able to construct the new house. I think I saw it at 40 feet from the street.
Yeah, the lot runs a lot deeper than the lots across the street, so I can come back at least 40 feet. I don't have to go that deep. I'm pretty sure 25 is all I need from the property line.
Right. Okay, and New York is a dead end street at that point, right?
Yep.
And your property backs onto the Regeneron property, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. I think that's about all I have right now.
Thanks, John.
Okay.
Any other members?
Thank you.
Mr. Sherman, you said you bought the property from the Georges, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, the survey you provided shows the adjoining neighbors are looks like Jarvis, Doyle, and I'm having trouble reading it. Skirmerhorn or something like that? Wasn't the Georges anyway, is that correct?
Well, the Georges live kitty corner from that lot. They don't live on either side of me or behind me.
They didn't own an adjacent lot, is that correct?
No.
Okay. And you don't own any of the adjacent lots, is that correct?
No.
In the proposed house, in the application, you showed a sketch. You are meeting all the other required setbacks with the proposed house, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions from other members of the board? Okay. Seeing or hearing none, Mr. Sherman, let me open it up. Adam, do we have any members of the public in attendance tonight that wish to speak regarding the appeal?
Yeah, we do. We've got two. One, DGTJR. Why don't I've got a chat from DG. I'll just call him DG. Let me unmute DG and we'll see if he wants to or she wants to speak. And otherwise I'll read the chat.
Okay, thank you.
DGTJR, are you able and willing to speak, or would you like me to just read? Okay, he's chatting. Please just read the chat.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. As a resident and homeowner in the town of East Greenbush, I support any efforts to improve residential areas. From the documentation provided by the applicant, it appears that an older uninhabitable dwelling is to be torn down or has already, and a new structure is to be built in its place. There are only positive outcomes if this variance is approved. The neighborhood will have an attractive new structure, and the assessed valuation of the property will increase significantly, hence more tax revenue for the town. As a resident and homeowner, I would welcome the approval of the variance. It's a no-brainer. What's the real issue with only 15 less feet frontage as long as there are no encroachment issues? Will this set a precedent for other variance applications in the future? And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you for the comment. I will speak towards the precedents. Every appeal is taken as an independent review. We have approved other undersized lots with frontage that did not meet the requirement. We have also rejected some other appeals. So it does not set a precedent, but we do try to use the criteria consistently on all these appeals as we look at them individually. So good question. Thank you.
And Jeff, I've got one more from DG. One more question. There seems to be an error in the resolution. It refers to a pool. Your thoughts? Question mark.
Yes. Yeah, we apologize. We caught that clerical error earlier, and that'll be cleaned up on the final resolution. That's why we issue them draft to the members ahead of time. Thank you.
And then, Jeff, we've got one more member of the public, Kathleen Klein, and I think it's Rich Klein.
Okay.
Let me unmute you guys.
Thank you, Adam. Welcome, Mr. and Mrs. Klein. Give us 1 sec. You get them unmute? There you go. Go ahead, Mr. and Mrs. Klein.
Thank you.
Yep.
You want to speak, dear?
Okay, my contention is that it seems like every time there's someone wants a variance on this street, they get it, which ends up changing the setbacks of the properties. And the piece of property in question is that they took down, or they raised a structure. They took out trees. They brought in fill, and they spent all that time and money with the idea that they're going to look for a variance. Although it sounds like they had it already sewn up. To me, anyway, that's what it sounds like. I have a question about how the house is going to be orientated, and to be able to keep back the setbacks and still have room to get to the garage. Because I know the house next to us was set on a lot that was 60 feet. It was a I believe it was a 40-something foot house. 60 minus 12 would be what, 48? Yeah, it was a 48 house. It kept the 8-foot setback. So I don't know how this house is going to be orientated.
It'd be the only one that would be orientated in a different direction. From what we can
Is the short part of the house going to be orientated toward a road and having a longer type home or
it would be the only home that would be that way.
That's an excellent question. Allison, if we could, do you have the proposed sketch that you could share? Thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Klein, can you see the sketch that's shown?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, it'll be a 30 by 50. So basically the shorter end is going to be towards the road.
Right. And what I'd like to do is, after you guys are set with your questions, I'll let you guys finish, and then I'll turn it back to the applicant to describe the layout. What's shown right there is the old survey,
There we go. Okay. So what is actually the front of the house? Which are they going to show as the front?
Yeah, I'll ask the applicant that next.
Okay.
The plan shows 27 feet
So excellent job. Thank you, Allison. So this shows New York Avenue across the bottom, the 60-foot width. They've increased the side yard setback. They had 6.2 and 6.6 feet on the right side of the old home. They've doubled that to be 12 feet off of the property line. And then using the 30-foot width, they still have 18 feet to the other property line on the left, looking at the front of the house, what I'll call the front, but I'll let the applicant describe the layout.
Okay.
So the 27-foot side will be the front of the house, will have the front entry.
Well, no, that's what he's going to ask.
Yeah, I need to ask that. We'll need to get that clarification. That's a good
Okay.
question.
Thank
Actually, let me do that. If I can put you guys on pause or mute for a moment. And Adam, if we could turn it back over to the applicant, Mr. Sherman, can you just describe the functional layout of this house, the 30-foot frontage? Is that actually a front door, or how is this house oriented?
Well, this house is orientated mostly because of that garage. Now, that driveway runs down the left-hand side of that lot to the two-car garage. So I was turning the house sideways so the front door would exit onto the driveway as opposed to having a front door to the front of the house. If you can follow me.
Yeah, I do. So you're proposing that the front door be on the 50-foot side that faces the driveway. What would be the 30-foot that faces New York Avenue? Would that just be a side of the house?
Yeah, there'd be a side of the house with two windows on that side, and I'm pretty sure in my plans them two windows would be actually bedrooms that would face the road.
Okay. Would you propose that the rear of the house be actually facing Regeneron, or would you try to have the rear just be on the 12-foot setback side?
Well, considering the front door would be on the driveway side, the rear would be on the 12-foot setback side.
And then the large side yard facing Regeneron, where you have 80 foot of depth, that would be another side yard of the house with no access to the 80 foot?
Well, you could drive through there. There'd be plenty of room between the house and the corner of the garage.
I mean, access directly from the house. Would it just be a side with no doors?
I think I was planning on putting a sliding glass door in there and maybe a patio out back, if that's all permitted.
There wouldn't be any.
That's what I would consider my backyard.
I think that was the question is, how is the house going to function with respect to the street frontage for the neighbors that drive by, as well as functionally, how would the house function? Would you try to have the rear yard with a deck and patio within the 12 foot against the neighbor's yard, or in a larger 80 foot backing up to Regeneron?
Yeah, I would have it on the back side. The whole garage kind of dictated me to go this route, because if the garage wasn't there, I could have done more, more with it. But being the garage is there and the driveway has to stay there for the garage to work, it kind of cuts down, my 60 foot again.
Okay.
So by turning the house sideways, I could still fit that size house, and I still think it'd look presentable.
You know of any other houses on New York Avenue with the side facing the street?
No. I mean, I could always change the plans too if I have to. I mean, if that's not acceptable.
Okay, thank you. Adam, let's turn it back over to Mr. and Mrs. Klein, see if they have any other comments.
Yeah,
Okay, well, you had a question for
Yeah.
Mr. Schubert. Yeah, this house would be the only house on this street, both sides of Sherwood Ave, that has a side facing the road.
yeah. It would look much more presentable if they put the frontage to the road. And even if he had to make it a two-story, I realize that's a different concept here, but it would look much more in line with what is on the street. There is a
Neighborhood.
two-story house right next to it. The one next to it is a two-story
Yeah,
house.
it's a cape.
So it to me, having the house face in that direction would look so odd. I'm happy to see something done on the lot, but I think that would just look very, very strange. None of the other houses are that way here.
Right.
Thank you.
I don't even
But
think
I
they
don't know.
are anywhere in the neighborhood that I can think of.
And I can remember.
that I can remember. Are
I've been in
facing
this
like that.
neighborhood since 1959.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a house in this area
that I
that
can think of.
that the side of the house is facing the road, the address
Okay.
road.
Excellent. Thank you both. Any other questions or comments?
No, I think so. I mean, I'm not terribly opposed to it. I just want to make sure it fits in with the neighborhood, you know. And like I said, every time someone needs a variance, they get it. You know, like I said, I lived here since '59. I would never have expected me looking out the kitchen window of my boyhood home and seeing Regeneron.
Yeah.
I mean, it approaches right up to the residential area.
They should consider, if I could add one more thing.
Yep.
They should consider some type of fencing between those properties and Regeneron. We're on the opposite side of the street, and in the evening when Regeneron has their lights on late at night, it comes right in our house. We don't need a night light. And I think that is something that should be addressed. They should at least have a sizable fence as a barrier.
Something we have
That's another
That's another issue.
issue. But,
yeah, we can pass that comment along over to code enforcement, and Adam Yagelski, our director of planning and zoning, is present at this meeting tonight by chance. So that comment will get forwarded to the appropriate people, and
I do realize too
enough
that
different
Regeneron-
applications that we might be able to address it some other way.
Thank you.
I do realize that Regeneron has a lot of tax weight in this town, and rightly so. But you know, the area was originally to be a residential area,
Understood.
you know, and people bought their property with the idea that that's what it's going to be, and we're trying to protect the value of our properties, you know.
Understood. We're sensitive to that ourselves, so we appreciate the comments. Thank you tonight.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Adam, if we could turn it back over to the applicant, and or actually let me just open it up to the board members before we go back to the applicant one last time. Any other questions from the board members? Okay, hearing none. If we want to go back to the applicant, anything else you want to address? It was a little bit of a request to try and change the appearance of the house so that it would appear the front of the house faces New York Ave, which would be more consistent with the surrounding neighborhood and properties. Is that something that you could maybe work with code enforcement should this move forward?
Yeah, I have no problem changing my plan. I don't know if that's a requirement in the town to have the front door on the front of the house, but if it is, I have no problem changing the plans.
Adam, could you weigh in on that potentially? I hate to put you on the spot, but from a planning standpoint, would you weigh in on that?
Yeah, I do not know if there is a specific requirement for that type of configuration. I mean, from a planning standpoint in general, you know, you talk about sort of unity in difference, you know, and how buildings articulate to the street, including things like, fenestration, colors, and, where key elements like the front door or are oriented, two-story, where they sit on the lot. All of that is important in defining a coherent neighborhood, atmosphere and streetscape. So if it's
Yeah.
even if it's not a specific requirement, and I can get back to the board on that, and I can work with Kevin too, because I think he certainly is more in the trenches, the building inspector. But I think it's good planning, to sort of have that more unified street appearance.
All right.
Go ahead, Mr. Sherman.
Yeah, I mean, I got no problem working that out. I mean, I can easily change the plans.
Yeah, I could see something potentially where at least the house is oriented towards New York Avenue as a front door and a side or rear door with a mud room or something to access the garage area would make sense. So that would be appreciated if it's something you could do.
Yeah, if I can keep the house the same size, I just change the layout and put a front door on the front of the house. I mean, that's not a big issue.
I will say that the only thing we are here tonight to issue a variance on potentially is relief from the 75-foot of frontage. As long as you meet the side yard, rear yard, and front yard setbacks, you have flexibility in the size of this overall house. So you are not bound to stick exactly to what is shown on your sketch as long as you meet the setbacks that are required going forward. So you do have some flexibility of moving the 30 by 50 around a little.
Okay.
Can I ask if there was any discussion of this with the planning board?
Adam, can you weigh in on that? I don't believe this has gone to the planning board yet, has it?
We got the referral, the planning board issued the referral. Allison, do you want to pull that? Can you pull that PDF up? I don't believe that this was talked about. I think it was mostly around the whether development here would be out of character with the surrounding area. I think the PB recommendation, Allison, if you.
Yeah, I've got the detailed.
Just give me a minute.
In front of me. It
Yeah.
does not reference
The supplemental, I think, is
anything
probably more
regarding the orientation of the
informative.
house.
Hey. Go ahead, Mr. Bangberg.
Thank you. I was just saying that I just reviewed the detailed report from the planning board member. It does not discuss anything regarding the orientation of the house. So I don't know that it was considered.
But it seems to assume, I think it assumes though that the front is the front and the rear is the rear, and it's kind of the way it reads, isn't it?
Talks about front yard, side yard, and rear yards as such. So you could read into that. But yeah, it's not explicitly discussed.
I guess one other question too might be, how was the old house that was torn down? How was that oriented?
Who is that, Mr. Conway?
That was Adam Yagelski.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Sherman,
No.
can you weigh in on that? How was the original house oriented with regards to?
Well, it had a front door pretty similar to what I first proposed that went out onto that driveway. So the front door faced, the left-hand neighbor's lot.
Okay. Because the orientation is shown similar to yours with the skinny side facing New York Ave and the depth going back away from New York Ave.
Yep.
And the two neighboring properties, Skirmerhorn and Jarvis, they front on Sherwood? Is that correct? Or does Jarvis front
No,
on New York Ave?
They should all frontage on New York Ave.
Actually, Skirmerhorn's the really deep lot. that comes in.
Yeah,
off
I'm the third lot on the right when you're coming off Sherwood.
Yeah, Jarvis.
So I go by
faces-
I go by two houses.
Jeff, we've got a couple other comments from DG in the chat box here. If you want me to read them.
Yeah, that'd be fine. Thank you, Adam.
So the first one is Regeneron is not the only problem child in the town of East Greenbush. And then the second one is not from Google Maps, ellipses. The front door appears to face toward the road.
Actually, it did. Yeah, Google Maps still has the old house shown on it, and it does appear there's a gable end facing New York Ave, and it had a door, so it does appear that it appears at least that is the front of the house. It may have had a side entrance facing the driveway, but it did appear like there was a front door facing New York Ave.
Yeah, there was two entrances, and the front also had a front porch on there.
Yes. Yep. And actually, there is a house a little further down New York Ave that it appears like a Cape Cod style on the opposite side of the road with the gable facing New York Ave. But again, even though that's oriented with the deep side away from New York Avenue, the side of the house has a doorway that appears like a front door. So I do think that is important for a character standpoint on the street, that there is a doorway that could be construed as a front door. All right. Adam, any other questions from the public?
No, I think that no. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. All right. With that, I'll entertain one last time. Any other questions from members of the board? Seeing or hearing none. Mr. Sherman, anything else you wish to add before we close the public hearing?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion from a member to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion.
I'll make that, Jeff.
Either way, me or Scott.
Doesn't matter.
I think Tom was first, and then Scott, you wanted to second that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. With that, we close the public hearing, and also any further public input on this appeal tonight. The applicant and members of the public are welcome to stay and watch the rest of the proceedings tonight. There'll be no more interaction with the applicant or members of the public while we entertain seeker deliberation from members of the board, and then potentially a vote on the appeal tonight. So thank you very much for the input and participating tonight. Like I said, you're welcome to stay. You're also welcome to disconnect, your choice. With that, we do have a memo in regards to appeal 2020-04, Dave Sherman for 46 New York Avenue, application for an area variance. The Zoning Board of Appeals has considered this project under seeker and determines that this project meets the requirements for a type 2 action and no further seeker review is required. End of that memo. So with that, I will open up the workshop to members of the board. Adam, if you could just unmute any of the members and we can enter into workshop. So I'll open it up to discussion for any member that wishes to start.
Yeah, you guys just logistically, you guys should all be able to mute and unmute yourselves.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff, I'll start with a comment. I took a ride down at this neighborhood, and I would be in full agreement with the first member of the public that spoke, or at least wrote in some comments. Right now, the lot, it's overgrown. There's a couple mounds of dirt on it. It's empty. It's probably pretty much an eyesore, and I think probably everybody in that neighborhood would agree. And a house would be welcomed. I think there was something else I read that 11 of the lots on that street are at 60 feet or less. So that having a 60-foot frontage is well within the character of that neighborhood. The setbacks are all going to be met, which is great. I know we got hung up on the orientation of that front door, and I can certainly appreciate maybe a neighbor not wanting a front door facing the side of their house or their backyard. And I'm sure we could certainly work around that. And the applicants seem very open-minded to working around that also and meeting the needs of the rest of the neighborhood. I think it's a pretty reasonable request, in my opinion.
Thank you, Bob.
I have a couple comments as well. So again, like Bob said, nearly every lot on the street is 60 feet. So I don't think that's really relevant. I don't believe we're here and it's our responsibility to consider the orientation of the house. I think that's a planning board issue. If you look actually at the house that's on the corner of New York Ave and Sherwood on the opposite side of the road, because it's a corner lot, it's actually the side of the house faces Sherwood Ave or faces New York Ave. So it's not like it's the only house on that road that has the side of it facing New York Ave. There's also two structures that the main frontage of the building are actually garages that are the furthest point forward. I'm not sure of the frontage and how that's really relevant to our purview tonight on this. And again, the 60-foot. My one question would be, and this is kind of for Jeff, Adam, and Bill, is I think the one concern I would have is that the garage is still well infringing upon the setbacks. And because that's an existing structure that's only, I think it says 1.78 feet from the property line, is that exempt under a pre-existing condition or not?
Yes, that is a pre-existing non-conforming structure. So as long as that is not being rebuilt, we have conditions that it can't be rebuilt any closer than what it is. If it was to be rebuilt, it would need to come in for a variance or to meet the required setbacks. That is exempt from this application tonight. Regarding, and I think we should have a little bit of a discussion on this, is, the corner lot at New York and Sherwood does have a front door facing Sherwood Ave, but as a corner lot, it also has two front yards. So there is an argument that it has a front door facing a front yard. This lot on New York Avenue only has one front yard, which is New York Avenue. So the majority of houses up and down New York Ave have, if not all, front doors facing the front yard and New York Avenue. So from a community character standpoint, Tom, we may be able to condition that as part of the appeal, that, if they needed the variance and the only way to meet the variance is to put this house sideways when none of the other houses in the neighborhood are sideways, I believe it is something that we could condition.
I don't disagree that we could. I think we're stepping into the planning area, and it's not really necessarily, something that is a relevant condition to the actual variances that they're asking for, from my perspective.
Understood. Bill, you want to weigh in on that?
No, I agree with everything that everyone has said so far. I mean, obviously, as far as the garage is concerned, pre-existing condition. And as far as the front door, again, that's not before the ZBA. We just hear about the variance for the frontage on the street. But certainly it's a consideration that, as was pointed out, the applicant seemed to be open to. So I don't think it's something that we would necessarily have to add as a condition. So.
Thank you. Other members of the board?
Jeff, I think Bob summarized it well. I agree with everything he mentioned. Fits the characteristics.
Likewise, Jeff.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Scott. Anything else, Matt? Do you want to keep going?
Nope, I'm good. Thank you.
Scott, anything else?
No, nothing outside of what's been said already. I'm good.
Thank you.
I-
Sorry.
Are you there?
Who was that?
Yeah,
John.
Yeah, I lost John's video. That's why I'm
Yeah,
looking around. I don't see John. I hear John.
I think
Yeah.
he dropped off and came back.
Yeah, I've been out for 2 or 3 minutes here, so I just maybe I should give you my point of view on this from what I've heard.
Yeah, fire away.
Yeah, I just I've taken a look at the property, and it seems that I think this is a good use of the property, building another single-family home on the street. Most of the lots, nearly all of them are 60 foot now, and it's just kind of wedged in there. There doesn't seem to be another use for this parcel. So, given the state that it's in now, I think the single-family home would be a good alternative here. And for me, given the fact that it is on that one-way street and it is now backs up to the Regeneron property, I think kind of justifies this use. It seems to be a well-situated house. I hope there'll be some consideration as to how it will appear and sort of the amenities around that and all that, but I'm not sure that that's really a zoning issue. It seems to me that they don't meet the 75-foot requirement, but they do meet a lot of the other requirements that we need. So I hope this isn't too redundant, but I thought I'd let you know that's how I kind of see this.
No, I appreciate that, John. Thank you very much. I will weigh in a little bit just because, we do have the issue of precedents coming up, and we do have a lot of these undersized lots in town. I think it's key tonight, the fact that this was a sole ownership lot. They did not own adjoining lots. This was a 60 by whatever the depth is lot, pre-existing with a house on it. So the applicant, as one of the members of the public mentioned, is coming in with an improvement. They're now meeting all the setback requirements. They can't meet the width requirement because the lot is pre-existing and they don't own adjoining properties. So I am sensitive to the property owner's concern that, we don't hand out variances like chiclets and just move on. We are sensitive to try and make sure that community character is met, planning characteristics are met. There's been some good discussion from the board members of how this property would function. And I do think that is important because we have some other properties that are too small with houses oriented awkwardly to their neighbors, which create issues. So I appreciate the feedback tonight. With that, any other comments from members of the board? With that, anybody want to forward a motion tonight for consideration?
I can.
Thought
if you
I might
want
give
to,
it a try tonight, Jeff, if the internet will hold up on me.
Okay, why don't you go ahead, John? Thank you.
All right. Whereas an application has been filed by David Sherman of 2609 US Route 20, Nassau, New York, 12123. The applicant proposes to construct a single-family dwelling on an undersized lot in the R2 zoning district with a proposed frontage of 60 feet. Review of the proposed work will not comply with the following provisions of town zoning law, section 2.5.1A, supplemental bulk standards, and 2.6.6, residential district R2. Required lot in the R2 zoning district is 75 feet. And whereas the applicant has filed an application requesting an area variance at the property located at 46 New York Avenue, East Greenbush, tax map 155.9-6-7. And whereas the Board of Appeals has duly published notice of public hearing regarding this appeal in the record on June 2nd, 2020, and whereas notice of public hearing was provided by certified mail to owners of all property within 200 feet of the land involved in the application, to the Planning Board and to the Rensselaer County Bureau of Economic Development and Planning. And whereas a public hearing was held by the Board of Appeals on Tuesday, June 9th, 2020 to consider this appeal, and whereas the Planning Board of the Town of East Greenbush at its May 27th, 2020 meeting provided a report of the requested area variance with a recommendation, and whereas this hearing, the applicant, as well as any others, all persons interested in this appeal were heard. Their statements were recorded and various written materials included in exhibits, if any, were entered into the record. And whereas all statements, written materials, and exhibits submitted in connection with said appeal have been carefully considered, and whereas this appeal has met all the requirements of the seeker and the teeker, now therefore be it resolved that there will not be an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood, as this would be an improved use of the lot. That there is no other method available to the applicant, as there is no land available on either side. 3, that the requested variance is substantial, but there seems to be no alternative for the use of this property. 4, the proposed variance will not have an adverse effect on the neighborhood, as it is largely consistent with the other houses on the block. And 5, the alleged difficulty is self-created. However, that shall not necessarily preclude the granting of an area variance.
You can keep going, John.
Resolved that the application for area variance for a proposed frontage of 60 feet is granted with no conditions. Is there a discussion on this now?
Actually, this, let me just jump in. This resolution was moved by John Conway. Do I have a second?
I'll second that, Jeff.
Seconded by Bob Seward at a meeting duly held on June 9th, 2020. I will open it for discussion. John, just a comment came up. Do you wish to consider a condition that a door be provided facing New York Avenue, consistent with surrounding houses? Or no? That's your call. It's your motion.
Well, what I would do is I would say that the design should be consistent with the surrounding houses. And I wouldn't necessarily mention the door. That would be my preference.
Okay. So with one condition, that the house design be consistent with surrounding properties.
Right.
Okay. Any other discussion? Hearing none, a vote was taken as follows. John Conway.
Yes.
Matt Ostagai.
Yes.
Tom Hickey.
Yes.
Jeff Pangburn, yes. Bob Seward III.
Yes.
Scott Stravell.
Yes.
My motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. Okay, that is the end of Appeal 2020-04. Moving on, our next meeting is June 23rd, 2020. Allison, do we still have one or two applicants on June 23rd?
Just one.
Just one.
I'll send out the packets tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. We are still in limbo and fluctuating of whether or not we are going back live into town hall or not. There was a little bit of a false start that we were going to move this meeting into town hall, then we weren't, but we're going to move the next one. So there's some updated guidance going back and forth I won't bore you all with, but we'll continue to discuss in the town to see what happens. For right now, let's plan on moving forward with the meeting on the 23rd being virtual online once again. The governor has extended the ability to have online meetings. I think with social distancing and stuff, it makes more sense and is easier for everybody involved to have them virtually still while we're able to. So for right now, we'll stay that way, but discussions are ongoing within town hall about when to move meetings back into town hall itself. So with that, yeah, appeal number 2020-03 Gay of 733 Columbia Turnpike, 2 area variances for a 24 by 22 detached garage and rear yard is on the agenda. So thank you. Allison, we have approval of minutes on the agenda from May 28th, 2020. I believe that was all 6 of us, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of May 28th?
I'll make that motion, Jeff.
Motion by Scott Stravell. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
By Tom Hickey. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. With that, Adam, I don't believe we have any new topics to discuss for the zoning board.
No, other than the meetings and virtual or in person, that seems to be the big one outside of the normal business right now.
Continue to work through that. Any update on the comp plan from you or John?
I'll defer to John. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, we did get I got an email from the consultants, and they had briefed the town board, the full town board, I guess, as to where we were at the time, which I can hardly remember when that was, in March sometime, right?
I think it was the first meeting in April 8th, John.
Right. Anyway, that meeting is online on YouTube, I think, right? It's part of the town's YouTube channel. So if you want to take a look at that, you'll see what the town board is thinking about it, as well as where the steering committee and the consultants are on that.
Excellent. Thank you for the update. That's good. All right. With that, I'll entertain a motion to close the meeting.
Make the motion.
Is that Matt Osterguy?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by John Conway. All those in favor? Aye.
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 Oppose? Abstain? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. And we can end the recording. Thank you. Thank you very much.